This is a podcast about both having autism and living with someone who has autism. My mom is Sonya, and I'm Josh, and this is Josh Has Autism.
Hey everybody, welcome to Josh Has Autism.
Hello.
Oh man, Josh, we are so close to this renovation being done.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you guys hear hammering during the podcast today, it's because they're putting in carpet. Which Nana, my mom, wanted carpet in the whole space. And she likes carpet because she's cold all the time.
Yeah.
And she likes the way it feels.
Yeah.
I hate carpet.
You're crazy.
Oh, I hate it. I like area rugs.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. But I really like hardwood floors.
Yeah. I can't stand walking on them barefoot, let alone in socks. Hardwood floors? No.
Yeah.
No.
Why?
Because so much dust and stuff like that accumulates on it that if I walk anywhere on hardwood floors, they get disgusting, and I can't put the socks or my feet. I can't put my feet into new socks and wear them because my feet are dirty. Mm-hmm. I can't put socks on and walk through the house and then put shoes on because that'll get all that stuff inside the shoe. Mm-hmm. And you can't really clean those very easily.
Mm-hmm. And I don't allow people to wear shoes inside the house.
Oops.
Oops. As I look down and you're wearing your shoes. Yeah.
Because we have hardwood floors throughout most of the house.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like the shoes coming in the house because every place that you go, everything that you're stepping on gets tracked into the house.
Yeah.
So germs or whatever it is. And I started when Connor was a baby.
Yeah.
Because when you were a baby, I didn't
think about it.
No, I didn't think about it.
Didn't.
So, but when Connor was born, I just, everybody leave your shoes at the door because he's on the floor. Mm-hmm. He's taking in everything that you're tracking in. Mm-hmm. And so,
I mean, considering that he's now tall enough for his chin to almost reach while standing on the ground, to almost reach a cart's handle in the stores.
At the store, yeah.
I mean, the other day I saw him pretty much put his mouth on it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
Don't they, being with the kids, it's one constant stream of going, ew.
And it reminds me of Steve Urkel. Did I do that?
Yeah, yeah.
That was that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And I have to tell Madison all the time, don't, keep your hands down. Keep your hands down. Yeah, because she's which, look, I've eaten dirt. I've eaten, who knows, anything and everything. So life is very different. So I guess maybe they might be too insulated these days, but...
Well, they're also kids. They think they're invincible.
Yeah?
Well, not...
Most people do, I think, till they're like 30.
Unless something happens, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well... That's interesting. I never knew why you'll wear slippers inside. Because then the slippers, you don't have to feel it. Is it that...
Who wears slippers?
No, I'm saying you can wear slippers inside. That would be okay. But when you're walking on the hardwood floors, do you feel the stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. And it is pretty hard. I mean, I pretty much have to sweep every day.
Yeah.
It's less than it was, but... we had 3 dogs here.
And construction.
And, all the construction just makes everything dusty.
Yeah.
And messy. It, so maybe try slippers. That'll help you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you today about a couple of things, but one thing that I've noticed is that you've gotten pretty good at removing yourself from situations.
Yeah.
Before you get so elevated that you are overwhelmed completely.
Yeah.
So it used to be that you wouldn't know how... I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I wouldn't know how to react or respond to something, and I would, for lack of a better way of saying it, freeze up in my thought process and even physically, I'd sometimes freeze up because I wouldn't know what to do. And which would then just compound on itself, where let's say I was in a store or whatever, and I was being told, hey, we need to get something, come on, let's go, because we're in a hurry. I wouldn't know where to go, where to continue, any of it.
Yeah, that's a real big one. When you're on a time constraint,
Yes.
that really bothers you. That's super difficult.
Yeah.
You're much better than you used to be when you were much younger and you felt that kind of stress. And we actually did, let me finish that sentence, you would screech.
Yeah.
We did an awful lot of, I guess, therapy, but in, I would take you to the store and have you interact with somebody, but then tell you had this much time and we've got to go.
Yeah.
You had an awful lot of that in your life growing up so that you could, better handle that situation.
When it come up unexpectedly.
Yeah, because you just can't control everything.
Right. And one of the big things that I feel really helped in that regard was that it was a controlled
experiment.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. It was a controlled environment. That's what it was, where I knew what was going to happen from the get go. Like even before we left the house,
right?
You'd say, okay, we're going to go to the store. Whenever we're there, this is what happens.
Like you're going to be given this much time to do whatever it was, and then you're going to have to stop that and prepare to leave the store.
Yes.
Prepare to check out if we're getting something. Prepare to just leave if that's what we're doing. But it was a big deal to get you comfortable in your transitions.
Yes.
When your settings change, when your expectations, I said your, but the.
Yeah.
When these settings change and the expectations change.
Yeah.
Because you could be in the same location, but if you're with other people, depends on who you're with, the feeling of that experience is very different.
Yeah.
And that's something that didn't compute right away either, is that the feelings that you have, why does one thing, this work, but this doesn't work?
Right.
Why is it if you go to the store with me and it's one of those prepared outings, why does that feel more comfortable to you than if, we all went?
Yeah.
Or if, you had gone with somebody else, that like one of the therapists that would take you. What
right.
have you.
Or if there was more people in that kind of thing.
Store.
Well, I remember actually up in Pennsylvania when we lived there, whenever it was not just you and me doing that at sorry, wow, got something in my throat now. Wow. Anyway, I remember with candy bars, like after going through all the store, you'd say, okay, you can look at all the candy bars and you can choose one. It has to be under a certain price. And that's what would normally happen with you and me. But sometimes, like, I don't remember who it was, if it was Haley and a couple of her friends or what, were there with us. And it became so much more stressful and just a completely different feel.
Well, people that have really high energy stress you out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they talk really fast, if they go from one subject to the next, that's difficult for you to follow. Whether it's an adult or a child. But with Connor and Madison, they stress you out in a different way.
Yeah.
Even in an entirely different way.
Yeah.
And right?
Yeah.
In that sometimes just knowing that they're here is upsetting to you. And we're not saying that, nobody's suggesting that you don't, love the kids.
Right.
Right. That's not even the point. Even if you didn't, that's not even the point, right?
I love the kids.
Yeah,
I
I know.
don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of being around them when I can't be around them.
Well, right, because
They don't know.
you have.
They don't know boundaries.
Correct.
They don't know volume. Well, at least Connor doesn't.
Correct.
Well, Maddie also doesn't if she's like doing that high-pitched screech thing. It's not even a screech. It's like, I don't even know what to call it. It's almost like a whistle, but it's her voice.
Well, she's a 5-year-old little girl, and when she gets excited, her voice goes up.
There's no words that she uses either.
I know.
Yeah.
You're getting freaked out just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Which, I think that you have helped us most recently to understand that feeling that you have when you're around them. And that what you just said, I think, is hugely significant, because you live a life where you have the opportunity to remove yourself from everybody else when need be.
Yes.
And out of necessity that we've talked about is that with this renovation going on, you felt like it would be too much for you to be here when all of that was going on. There's too many noises. There's too many smells. There's too many, too much activity.
Yeah.
And so, understanding that, and you spend a lot of time over there at RJ's.
Yeah.
Well, he has off 2 days a week, and those 2 days a week, the kids are there.
Yeah.
And you have nowhere to go.
Right. Even if I go into the room that I'm in over there, which is, I can close the door and everything.
It doesn't stop anything, right?
No,
I mean,
it doesn't.
It's right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. And so that experience, I know you hear the knocking.
Yeah.
That experience has been, it's been very difficult for you with the kids. It's been very difficult, but I think it's been helpful because I understand what you need more than I used to when it comes to the kids. Because I see what's happening. And then also, there's the whole thing about you feeling like your expectations of them and what they should be held accountable to, when that's not happening, it goes back to the thing about there's rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, listen, if I gotta behave myself, dang it, so do they.
And it's not even that I expect for them to be perfect.
Sure.
Not at all.
Sure.
I'd like for them to be. Doesn't mean they will be, ever.
Right.
But that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's...
Well, one of the things that Connor has ABA therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And in that therapy, I really like it because there's a lot of hands-on. It's a lot of helping us to know how to help both of the kids to be more comfortable.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Connor is dealing with right now is that he's really intense with things needing to be on his terms. And I remember you being a little guy, and it was the same way, and it was very difficult back then, and it's difficult now. And you can watch Connor and see how Mads handles that. And it's interesting because a lot of it, your sister just said to me that she's seeing a lot of Uncle Josh in Connor right now. And because there was that's the life that she lived, of
Yeah.
needing to conform, needing to what you needed.
Yeah.
And, having to follow your rules. And it can be a very difficult thing to find that balance. And so...
and I'd like to point out that now I'm aware of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't always think about it, but I am aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I was younger, it was on the peripherals of my perception.
Right.
But it never really connected until I was much older. That it was difficult for everyone outside of me
Mm-hmm.
to have different rules, it seemed.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that there were times in your life where you never had, you couldn't conceive of somebody else having a different thought than yours. Like, how could somebody want to do this different when my way is clearly, and not and not even in an arrogant way. But
Right.
that what do you know? What do you mean? It's just it's
Group projects.
Well, yes, but I mean, even around the house, even when you're with your sister, and that that's something that another thing that we're seeing right now more than we have before with Connor is that he's having a difficult time making friendships, and he doesn't quite know what that is. Where, Madison will go, and if she meets somebody at the playground,
Mm-hmm.
they just play.
Yeah.
Connor sets the, he has to have a conversation, like he asks them, you want to be my friend?
Yeah.
And yet his understanding of what a friend is not exactly what we would describe. And I remember you having that struggle about what a friend is, and I just wanted to point out that we see this. Connor's 6, and we're seeing that he's very rigid in his thinking, has to be done his way. There's a lot of meltdowns, there's a lot of tears from everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were there, at once upon a time, and now you are able to make friends. I wanted to ask you about that specifically, because you do really well in interactions with people,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't really have friends, right?
I'm going to start with something else.
Okay.
It'll lead back into it.
Okay.
Whenever I was Connor's age, like 5 or 6 years old,
Mm-hmm.
I remember that I was, to myself at least, that I seemed much more mature than other kids my age. And I'm thinking, it just occurred to me while we've been doing this podcast today,
Mm-hmm.
that one of the things that came from that is, in regards to friendships, that a friend is, as a little kid, I would try and have friends.
Mm-hmm.
But my definition of what a friend is and what I learned that friends do was different than, as the example you gave with Maddie, just playing with another person on the playground.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't what a friend was to me. That was... I'm not explaining it very well, I'm sorry.
Sure you are. No, I'm following you. I think you're doing great.
I had a different perception and mindset of of what a friend is supposed to be and what a friend will do. not.
Where did you get the idea of what a friend was?
I believe part of it was from books.
Okay. So was that somebody that you, like, hung out with, that you had sleepovers with, that you played games with?
Yeah, that you would... someone that you would do that kind of stuff with, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to someone you meet on a playground once and never see them again. And yet you'd still play with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily a friend, in my knowledge now.
Right.
So me trying to make that connection when I was little wasn't met both ways with, at the time, my peers.
Mm-hmm.
Because they weren't as quote-unquote mature as I was at the time. So it made it a lot more difficult for me to connect with kids my age, but easier for me to connect with even adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. So you wanted a friend. You didn't quite know how to make a friend, and also to follow through on that and to have a friend. But you're saying that you felt like your interests were different, so that you felt more comfortable around adults than other kids, and you could also, I'm thinking by you're saying mature, I would change maturity, I would say intellect, and there's a difference. Because
now I understand that, yes. I remember thinking, though, whenever I was really little, why am I... Because I remember hearing adults say things about being more mature or whatever, or them being more mature or whatever. So that's what I used was, I'm more mature.
Mm-hmm. And in actuality, when the concept of friendship to you when you were little meaning just growing up, probably until later, high school,
mid to late teens,
was the concept was there, but you had a preference of being on your own. You had a preference of a lot of different activities were offered to you, like Boy Scouts and baseball and
soccer.
Yeah,
I loved soccer.
Mm-hmm. And those kind of organized team efforts were offered to you, and outside of the field, there was not a time that you really wanted a teammate to come home, to hang out, to sleep over and what have you.
Right.
And now you have quite a few friendships. They still don't do that. They don't come over to the house, rarely. They do as a group, if it's D&D.
Yeah.
Outside of that, you really have, like, your friendships are outside of the house.
Yeah.
And you meet and you share something that you have in common, and that's where it's left, right?
Yeah.
Have you, at this point up here in Virginia, have you gone out any place with somebody that you know from D&D? Have you gone to get a bite to eat or anything? I don't mean eating there. I mean leaving, going someplace else.
Once or twice.
Okay, cool.
But usually it was from D&D to a place to eat. We eat there, whatever.
Oh, like a group.
Yeah.
Like everybody.
Yeah.
Like, oh, let's go. Okay.
Yeah. And then we'd either go back and do some more D&D or whatever. Yeah.
That sounds like your perfect D&D sandwich. D&D, food, D&D. Sounds like your perfect arrangement. One of the things I wanted to ask you about too is that because you're talking about like you removing yourself from situations, and you've been really, I think you've done a great job in this lately because there's been a lot of stress that you've been feeling.
Yeah.
Because you're hanging out over at RJ's, but it's not home. You don't feel really comfortable there. You're okay, but then when the kids come, it's super intense conflict.
Yeah.
And it's because what I'm thinking about too is, it's so funny because when we do this podcast, you say, "Hey, I just figured this out," and it's the same thing for me. Is that you really do have a desire and a need for everybody to follow the rules, and for everybody to, and it just occurs to me that over there it's very chaotic.
Over where?
At RJ's.
Yes.
When the kids are there, there's a lack of discipline, and so if you
it's also difficult because whenever the kids are over and I go back to the room,
mm-hmm.
I don't, and it could be 4:00 in the afternoon,
mm-hmm.
and the kids are over, and I'm stuck in my room for the rest of the night.
Right.
And there's the option of sitting in my uncomfortable chair at a computer screen, hurting my neck to look at it.
Okay.
Or laying in the bed.
Yeah, right. Which is why, you're here.
Yeah.
And I think that's a solution that's working. That when they're there, you stay here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get away. You have time away from all the construction sounds and smells and all the activity. And yet, when all the activity is over there, you come over here to get away from that. It's a very different feel, though, because that's coming right at you. Kids being loud, on the other side of a door.
Yeah.
It can make you feel. It would make me feel like I'm going to lose it. For you, I can't imagine. But lately there's been times when I just wanted to give you kudos on this, because even more than ever before, you have called me up, you have come over, you have just wanted to connect and let me know, and you've done it in different ways. You've said, "I just don't feel like myself." You said, "It sort of feels like depression, but you're not quite sure." You said, "I feel anxious." You said, "I'm stressed out." You are feeling agitated. And you are able to, as of late, in those moments, kind of, you don't necessarily know exactly what it is you're feeling, but you know that you're just not feeling
right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And, excuse me.
Or at least I'm not feeling like I should.
Mm-hmm.
Or like I feel I should.
Yeah. And one of the things that is happening is you have been on, so you have, along with autism, you have ADD.
Mm-hmm.
And you had been on something called Vyvanse. And because through the gene testing, GeneSight is the name of it, they discovered that some of the things that a person would be given, typically be given for ADD and depression and anxiety disorder, those things are not really hitting the mark for you.
Right.
You don't metabolize them.
Right.
So
they're not nearly as effective.
Right. They are definitely not at a therapeutic level. So it's kind of like you.
Right.
It's just not benefiting.
As well as the side effects of some of them just weren't worth it.
So yeah, and so what happens that we're trying to figure out is that you're going through a medication change right now, and you're maybe 4-5 days into this, where
6.
Okay, you have been on Vyvanse, which is a controlled substance, and you have been having trouble sleeping, going to sleep. Once you're asleep, you're okay, you stay asleep. But you have a horrible time falling asleep.
Yes.
And one of the things that the psychiatrist has looked at is saying, this is a stimulant. And even though it has life of the medication, where it's like they look at it as this is the hours that it's therapeutically effective. Well, there's always those things that they can't really measure, I guess. If you were in a lab someplace, they could be testing you to see why you can't sleep, but that's not really reasonable.
Right.
And while they don't see this in all patients, they say this is a side effect. So the Vyvanse is one that now the doctor is saying, you know what, let's try something different that's not a stimulant, but it has some really great effects. It in the right direction.
Right.
And the name of this, so listen, I'm going to spell it because I can't think of another word that I know of. You may have, because you read far more than I do.
Yes.
But usually the letter following Q is U. And this medication is Qelbree.
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 Not Quellbree, Qelbree, like Kel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why isn't it a K?
Because it's pharmaceutical.
Yeah, right. But it's not right. Like it is, QU. It needs to be QU.
No.
Qelbree.
No.
Qelbree. I
No,
know.
that's not how it's pronounced.
I know, it's Qelbree.
Yeah.
Qelbree is the name of this medication. So you started that, but you haven't stopped the Vyvanse yet.
Correct. That'll be happening in a day or two.
Yeah, probably like today's 6, tomorrow's 7. After that, you stop the Vyvanse.
Correct.
Okay. Well, you've been feeling, since you started this, you've been feeling pretty agitated.
Yeah. Much more irritable, and or at least easier to become irritable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very stressful to me to not just have that happen, but to know that it's a shorter
fuse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that, but
right. And are there other changes that are going on that we can look at what else is happening, or do you think it's probably the medication?
Earlier you had said that I had mentioned about that it feels like parts of depression,
mm-hmm.
or what was it you said? Anyway.
So that when you call me up and say this, how you're feeling, like it's like depression, but not quite.
There's certain aspects of it that are included in depression.
Okay.
To when I feel depression.
Okay.
That are occurring. Not all of it, but even parts of it still not great for me to feel.
Can you explain that?
For me, depression can be So, you know how in old black and white films, how it would be all grainy and everything
mm-hmm.
like that?
Yeah.
I'm talking about before sound ones, but it'd be all grainy and everything like that, and it wouldn't be uniform in its speed and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And even with pictures from then and before that, even from before that, you'd have the dark outline around the edges of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that the worse my depression is, the more encompassing I see that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm specifically talking about, for me, how I perceive depression.
Right.
in all of it for me. So that's one thing that occurs. I feel very morose and overwhelmed. I don't feel like doing anything. And even if I'm upset or frustrated by me not doing anything, I don't have the willpower to do anything about it. I become easily irritated. You were about to say something?
Yeah, what I was about to say is that, a lot of times when you were growing up and you were dealing with all these different aspects and that just made things so difficult for you. I remember that sometimes people would put in their 2 cents, and first of all, I didn't need their 2 cents, and it wasn't appreciated because one of the things that I just wanted to mention while you're talking about that, and it's making me go back to when you were growing up, is that other parents out there that have a child on the spectrum, and then if you have normally, not let's just say for you have autism, but then you have these other diagnoses as well, and it can be very complicated, and it can be where you don't really quite know where something falls.
Right.
You don't always have to have that, but sometimes it's helpful. You don't want to just label something. But you know what? Sometimes when you have that, you're able to figure out how to best help you through that then, right? Well, to get through that, to overcome that, to feel better.
Right.
Well, one of the things that's so difficult is listening to you talk about this is that those things haven't gone away. You're just better able to manage them.
Yes.
Manage yourself.
Yeah.
And it might look like you're still laying around. Sometimes you don't get out of bed till 3 p.m. Yeah. Well, somebody else might come in and go, well, that's laziness. That's this and that, whatever. They're 2 cents that they can, what they can do with it. But what I'm saying is that they
don't know me. They don't try and figure out the circumstances or anything.
Well, and autism, it just can influence every aspect of your being, and the outside labels are the ones that I don't appreciate because they are not you.
Right.
You might be getting out of bed sometimes at 3 p.m. That doesn't mean you're lazy.
Right.
It means that you have spent everything you've got the day before. It means that you need that time to recharge and to be okay.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of you because you're able to put words, and even if you don't get them exact, a lot of times you're close these days, right?
Yeah.
This is how I'm feeling, I think.
Yeah.
Or I'm feeling this way, or I'm feeling that way.
Right.
It doesn't mean that since you've identified it, it's a magic cure.
Right. What I'm picturing in my head, at least, when it comes to this kind of thing, is imagine you have like a group of cups all pushed together, round cups, and so that, like, let's say there's 9 of them all together in rows of 3, and you take out, like, they're all stuck together in the sense that they won't move away from each other.
Okay.
But they're still flat on the table or whatever. And you take a bucket full of water, and you're slow, but you're not. It's like coming from a garden hose or whatever.
Okay,
right. And you're dumping it into the general area of a cup. Just because you're trying to get it all into one cup doesn't mean it's going to be in the one cup, let alone in any of the others. And
because it's not neat and tidy.
Right, and that's the labels and the emotions that I try and identify how I'm feeling are like each of the cups. And the water is the identifying. Or how I'm feeling, actually. The water is what I'm feeling, and the cups are the different emotions. It can be mostly in one cup, but there's also other emotions it can be, and it can also fall through the cracks where I don't have the name of the emotion.
Yeah. You are so good at analogies. You're so good. Yeah. Yeah.
That's actually one of the things I got almost right away was analogies. Or very early on, at least. Was figuring out how that was.
Right.
Because it was a relation game, almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm
sorry. That was, now that I'm thinking about it, that was one of the earlier ways that I was able to figure out how I was feeling about things, and and how to learn different things, not just for emotions, but for other things as well. But to equate something like how I'm feeling to what an emotion is described as being.
Which is a good point, because you know the emotion because it's been described to you.
Yes.
As, this is what, and at great lengths, know, and as you've gone through so much therapy, when you talk about these emotions, you have probably a better handle on what what descriptors are used for those particular emotions.
Right.
Yeah, because you've done that so much.
Yeah. And the analogies are just a step away from that, almost.
I think it's a good way for you to have perspective.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, one of the I've got two more things here that I wanted to bring up. One of them is that you, along with you being able to identify better than ever recently to identify how what you're experiencing, is that you recognize when you've needed outside help.
Yeah.
And that's something that's fairly new at the level that it's happening.
Right.
And that connection, that call that I get, that text that I get from you, that, and it's happening early, so it's not after the fact. So there were times before that you would reach out, but you would crash.
Yeah.
And then help me.
And
get out of this, you say.
And this is one of those things that, to me, is still not a natural occurrence. It is absolutely, for me, a learned response that I'm still working on.
Yeah.
And like you said, this is a new step in that. Because, yes, in the past I have tried to do things on my own and waited before finally, like you said, I would crash and then I would come to someone else for help.
So from the outside, when somebody might think that you were ignoring a situation to a point that it just became overwhelming, is that accurate? Or in the meantime, when these kind of things, let's just say you're getting elevated because whatever the emotion is, whatever the feelings that you're having that are coming up, are you ignoring them, or are you aware of them the whole time and you're trying to manage?
So there are different aspects to that. For the most part, I am trying to work through it and manage it. And there are a lot of cases where growing up I have tried to do that, and it becomes so overwhelming that and this is something that really became prominent in middle school, I believe. at least this term, was the shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate that term,
You do.
But that's what came about because I was so overwhelmed with trying to figure this out that I couldn't function outside.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of my mind.
Right, sure.
And it was very difficult for me to do that, to try and explain what I'm feeling,
mm-hmm.
because I couldn't find the right words, because I couldn't explain myself very well.
Mm-hmm. Which is, again, the reason for like we have this English language where we communicate by using the same words to reflect a certain experience.
Yeah.
Well, through you, I am very well aware that a word doesn't mean the same experience to all people.
Right.
It is, however, the best way that we have to become aware of one another's experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
So, this is an oldie but a goodie for a comparison thing. Inconceivable. That word, I do not think you understand what it means. From The Princess Bride.
Okay.
The movie The Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm.
That's a perfect example of what you're talking about. You don't know what I'm talking about?
I don't know the movie.
You don't? Okay. Wow.
I know. It's been on in our home numerous times.
Yeah.
And I have tried to watch, but I end up doing other things.
Yeah, it's a classic. It really is.
Okay. What does it mean? So people listening, what does that statement mean?
The whole thing, or just the inconceivable?
Inconceivable.
Well, the joke was, in the film at least, that the one man that kept on saying that whenever things wouldn't go his way, it would be inconceivable.
Oh.
He would say that. And he would use it for everything.
Oh, I got it, yeah.
Whenever something wouldn't go his way.
Yeah.
And even whenever it wasn't necessarily the right word to use.
Right. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. And because he'd use it in such a wide variety of situations,
yeah,
the protagonist of the film responded back to him, "That word, I do not think you know what it means."
Yeah, I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
So communication and understanding what words you're using actually mean, which again, not from this podcast, but inferred meanings and everything like that is not something I'm going to get into with that in that regards.
Right, sure.
But with literal dictionary definitions, understanding what the words mean and being able to convey that, really freaking difficult.
Yeah.
But understanding that and having the person you're talking to understand that,
yes,
really helps to bridge that gap in understanding.
So I just want to ask you about something that you just said. So understanding what a word means is difficult. So we were talking about the emotions of a word. So
Yes.
what you're saying is you're breaking it down, saying that not only are the emotions difficult to maneuver, but you've got to really understand what a word means. And if it's inferred, forget it.
Pretty much.
Okay.
But overall, what I'm saying is that even growing up, I had to learn what each word meant and how that felt within me to explain how I was feeling to other people so that they would understand.
Yes. Yes. And for most of your life, the thought that other people didn't feel exactly the way that you feel is or was
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable. Yeah. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, as usual, I'm just, and always, every day of your life, I'm very proud of you. And I just, this newness of you recognizing something and reaching out for help before it goes any further,
right,
is, it's funny, the words don't match, like, the level of elation that I feel, and just I'm just so in awe of you every day. But the fact that you can, these steps that you're taking, like, this was a giant one. This is something that's tangible.
Yeah.
So I'm just so proud of you.
Thanks.
Yep. All right. Well,
one final point about that, though.
Yep.
Is that it's also, for me at least, and since then I've learned that it's not just me growing up and getting older and more understanding and everything, but the situation, your experience so far and all that stuff can absolutely influence how a person would think things through and process things, and be willing to go to someone else for help.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, for example, in school, you don't want to be called a snitch for telling on someone about whatever.
Right.
And that can bleed over into explaining how you're feeling, in the sense of asking for help.
Mm-hmm. So it could hinder
Yes.
asking for help.
Yes.
Because of how your peers let you know that's accepted.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And
yeah,
so,
that's interesting because I hadn't made that connection.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's situational, and your peer pressure is huge in that regard. Mm-hmm. But it's very much so.
I think that we should talk about peer pressure next time, or a soon-to-be podcast. I think that's really you might be able to help us, because we all deal with that. I don't care how old you get, well, in my case, once, I don't know, I think once a woman hits 50, you just,
no, I don't know.
You do it, well, you do, because you live it with me, that I do what I want, say what I want out loud.
You always have, though.
It's when yes, that's true. That's true. But in a way where I have less concern, probably.
You have less inhibited thoughts.
True. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Or less inhibitions to share.
Yes, absolutely. That's right. All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, it's great information. Yeah. Oh, man. I just want to hug you. Come here. Oh, I love you.
Love you.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. So we're back at this again. The podcast comes out on Fridays from now on.
Oh, it does?
Yep.
Okay.
Not Thursdays anymore. It comes out every Friday.
Okay.
The blog is going to be attached to it.
Oh, cool.
Along with the artwork from RJ every Friday. So we're back on the ball.
Yeah, cool.
Yep. And so anyway, we're making some shirts.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. So that's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And our speech is just over 4 weeks away.
Oh, cool.
You excited?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, we've been working on it. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just tweaking it, because we have the speech, but we're tweaking it. We're so it's just for me anyway. It's just a lot of fun. But anyway, check us out on my website. It's SONYAKING I'll do it slow. SonyaKing.com. I know you always go, you spell part of it. That's because people spell my name wrong.
Yeah.
If you would give us 5 stars wherever you listen to us, I know that we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube.
Those would be likes and follows, I think, on YouTube. But yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever equals you liking what we do.
Yeah.
If you like what we do, please, just push the buttons and let people know. That way, it's easier for us to be found for others.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been getting a lot of feedback that now that we're on the roll again.
Yeah.
That it is making a difference, and that's what matters to us.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I'm glad that we're helping.
Yeah, me too. And so I hope everybody that you're healthy and happy and taking care of each other, and give the ones that you love hugs.
Yeah.
And yes, and take care of yourself. And we will talk to you next week. Love you.
Bye.